Hi everybody, welcome to another Innovation Cafe session. I'm so excited because now we have 150 followers on YouTube. It's like, wow, yes, I'm not a YouTuber, you guys are not probably as well, but it's a big fan base taking into consideration that we only started in late March, beginning of April, and the website is getting more and more views. So thank you all, and feel free to invite your friends or to recommend someone as a speaker, because we are here to learn and to share. This is really an informal thing. It's free. People don't need to pay to be here. It's not sponsored by one company, so we are not kind of biased to sell products or whatever. But today's session is it's special because we are not here to talk about any specific methodology or something, let's say, boring in such a beautiful day. So we have the pleasure to say hello to Ricardo. And Ricardo is going to talk about time management. I don't really know, so I'm quite curious. I think it's something in between stand up and a tech talk. So maybe over to you, Ricardo, and thank you very much. Obrigado for accepting my invite. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's really my pleasure to be here. Yeah, before I introduce myself, I will set the expectations right. Yeah, this talk is not very much techie talk. It's not so much about methodologies, more maybe a humorous philosophical questioning about how we deal with time. Also because now I work for Doodle, which time is our business. So previously, I'm from Portugal. I live 8 years in Berlin. Been doing design my whole life. That's the only job I had. Went to branding, graphic design, all of that. In the last years, doing a lot of UX and service design. Got quite a couple of years where my love was in IoT, and at a certain point I decided, okay, it's time to go to a product company, and I decided to come to Doodle because it's still a product or a problem that is still worth solving, which is time, or how we deal with time. Today, I just want to make something really clear. This is not a sales pitch. The marketing team did not approve this messaging. This is only my content, and I voluntarily tied up with certain aspects of our work. But I also need to introduce the company. By the way, for this meeting, I mean, we are not so many, so maybe we don't need it, but I have some interactive parts. So if you are in front of a laptop or you have of a smartphone, we're going to use menti.com just to do a couple of interactive parts. That's okay. So I will start, but let me just first figure out again. Just let me know when you can see my screen.
It's good.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so today we are here to talk about time, meetings, calendars, clocks, and all the annoyances that come with it. And they are not small. A little bit about background of Doodle. Doodle, yeah, as some of you might know, we started as this barbecue tool kind of thing to meet your friends and go for a restaurant or trying to organize personal events. But nowadays we are a SaaS company providing enterprise scheduling tools for all kinds of customers, from SMB to enterprise. And I joined last year, so I've been learning a lot about time and meetings. Like if I didn't have enough in the past, but there is a lot to learn still. So first I want to make a check-in. It's been 2020, it's a crazy year, a lot of global topics affecting all of us. My topic affects all of us, but maybe it's a little bit lighter, it's just time. If you could go to Menti, I would just like to make a check-in. Where's your mind now? How are you feeling? So you can just go to menti.com and put in the code. Okay, we are very much between either meh or super positive. Okay, there's somebody that's very stressed. And more meh. Okay, I will try to make this then a little bit worth your time, and maybe we can go for meh to not good, not bad. At least that will make me happy. I will go back to my slides. So we are here today to talk about time. So time is a very abstract and complex concept. So another interactive part that I want to ask you, I would like to ask one or two volunteers to reply to the following question. How would you explain time to a child? I will give you 30 seconds, and if somebody wants to jump in and give an idea, would be great.
It's that moment between life and death. Between, yeah, I don't know.
It depends what time you're trying to explain. I remember when I was a kid, time was explained in terms of Sesame Street. So it's going to be like, are we there yet? Oh, yeah, we're about 2 Sesame Streets away.
All right. I can relate to that. I grew up in Sesame Street too.
I would say it's our only true form of measurement. Everything else has been created by us. We say what certain weights are, what certain lengths are. You know, time is our only measurable, truly natural form of measurement.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Maybe too abstract for a child, but I guess it's the sequence of all events, and then we split that up into segments so that we can understand that sequence.
Fair enough. So if you really need to explain time for a child, my favorite one until now was somebody, well, is the time between your ice cream is frozen and it melts. Might create a little bit of sense of stress to the child, but it's really bad. Thank you. But as you see, it's a very complex concept. It's abstract. It's really hard to define, and each of us have a different relationship with it. So following up like this more interactive part, I would ask you to go back to Menti. We probably don't need to put the code anymore, and type the first 2 things that come to your mind when you think about time.
So 57.
If it Okay. So yeah, we all die one day. That seems pretty strong. Yeah, that's very true. We're going to talk about that too. But running out, not enough, pressure, rare. If you notice that, in other sessions, people keep saying the same as well. Is that there is more participants? Sorry, it's hard to keep track. But as you see, there is a constant. Here maybe it's not so, doesn't stand out so much, but like there is a running idea about time that is scarce. It's not enough. It's running out. Time is gold. Also, we're gonna die one day, but there is always insufficient. Running out. No, rare. So let's keep that in mind. And I'll go back here. So when you think about time, one can argue, discussing, I don't know, scientists or people who study the universe or cosmologists and so on, that our timeline started as soon as the Big Bang happened. What was before that, we still don't know. But nowadays we know a lot about the universe and how the universe relates with time and shapes time and shifts time. So our timeline, the clock started ticking as the Big Bang happens and the universe started to expand and to grow. But is the universe conscious of its time? We don't know. But we definitely are one of the species that got really obsessed with tracking the time. And we got pretty nerdy about it as well too. So there is no civilization in the history of mankind, I mean, apart from the really, really early ones, who didn't have some sort of timekeeping, time measurement device or system. So from the eastern side of the world to the western side, every civilization had its own time system. This is one of my favorites, is the Mayan calendar, which got proved again that these calculations are wrong. The world didn't end up last Sunday. But it's still one of the most interesting ones for me because it's mathematically one of the most accurate calendar systems we have in the history of mankind. And it's, well, a very beautiful piece to look at. But we go great lengths as humans to try to capture time and to measure time. And this is another visualization of the Mayan calendar analyze the existence of since the birth of I'm sorry, my mouse is pretty jumpy today. Of the timeline of the existence of the universe. So they went pretty deep on that. And just keeping this example, it's just because it's very mechanical. It's just to show how far we go as human species to create mechanical and physical devices that measure something as abstract as time. The complexity, this is just one calendar, right? But the complexity of it is quite huge, the mathematical models and everything. But we go as far as creating these super complex models to understand something that is as abstract as time. And, we also have different forms of creating, of mapping time. Stone Age, which is one of the biggest theories about Stone Age, which is still under a mystery what was really used for, but one of the strongest theories is that was used as a calendar system to understand migration of the birds, to understand where you should plant or when you should crop, and so on and so forth. But let's say it's not the most practical calendar to carry around. It's pretty quite heavy and it's quite bulky. But we do create these systems and these artifacts to map this abstract concept of time that even take shapes like this. If we go further in the history of calendars and time, or calendar keeping, let's say, this is the Babylonian calendar, which is closer to something that we have nowadays. It's more complex or visually more complex, but there's also something that stands out for me personally. Have you noticed that until now, all the calendars are circles? That we as humans perceive time as circle, maybe linear, but the representation of it is always a circle, or up until a certain point. Which brings me to the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we use in most parts of the world, or at least the business world, which definitely is not a circle anymore. It became quite complex. And it also became an aggregation and appropriation of different cultures and religions and trying to cram it up into something that would make sense. The problem is, it actually doesn't make sense. We become so dogmatic about the way we want to track time that the ruling calendar in the world, or one of them, has this amount of mistakes that need to be corrected every year in, every year out. So that's how really deep we believe in our dogma of calendars. I'm not saying that is right or wrong. I'm just saying like we really got obsessed with it and dogmatic about it. You probably didn't saw this one coming, but it's hard to talk about time and calendar systems without talking about religion and mysticism, especially because in the early civilizations, religion and mysticism are intertwined with the possible science at that point and beliefs. And it also has a huge perspective on how we see time. I mean, Pope Francis and the Dalai Lama are here as avatars of what they represent, not what they are. Although they are two really cool persons that I would love to meet and we have a lot to learn from, but they represent two different mindsets when we look at time. If you come from a Christian or a background or context, or if you come from a context where the ruling religion or ruling culture defines death as the final stage, and nothing else your existence terminates there and either go to heaven or, you know, each religion has its own version of heaven. You see time as very limited. You are born and one day you die. Therefore, you just have one shot at life. You see time as scarce because it actually is if you see it from that perspective. If you see it from a Buddhist perspective or from a perspective of religions or dogmas or let's say spiritual frameworks that do not believe that death is the ultimate stop as an existence, because in the case of certain strands of Buddhism do believe in reincarnation, you have a different perception of time because, you know, this is just another lifetime. You're going to have another one. So, you know, that is just a part of the process. So these two mindsets already influence how we see time without us probably not even being so much aware of it. And then if we were not nerdy enough to capture time in terms of lunar cycles and solar cycles and all of that and capture the months and everything, we got obsessed on mapping the now. What time is now, the moment, the now. So, you know, we go through all of these systems, like from water clocks, which for me was mind-blowing to see, and to mechanical things, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper to try to dissect time in the smallest unit possible, from months, from year, or to centuries, to years, to months, to weeks, to days, to hours, to seconds, to nanoseconds. We are never happy enough. It's never enough to measure the moment, which is now. So we got pretty obsessed with it. But how come that nowadays we ended up with something like that? I mean, we have seen beautiful calendars, really beautiful pieces of art. I study art, so my heart is there. And it kind of breaks my heart to see, like, wow, so many centuries of history, and here we are with these calendars. It doesn't matter if it's Doodle or Google or Outlook. We are stuck with this system. It's a system. It just takes different shapes and forms, which is, you know, tricky. So this idea of time, this idea of time, it's interesting because we got super nerdy about measuring time to try to control it, and in the end, do we really control it, or time is actually our master? We have all of these devices to measure. We have all of these solutions. We have centuries of evolution in that. And we are still, I believe that we are slaves of time and not the opposite. And what better way to feel that slavery if it's not in the modern view of meetings? We all know the pain of meetings. And it's probably where we don't want to spend most of our time, but that's where we do spend time. So at Doodle, we reach out to a lot of customers and users and try to understand what makes a good meeting, what makes a bad meeting. And, you know, we are in the business of solving scheduling. But let's analyzing again the meetings. Meetings are not a new concept. At a certain point in the history of mankind, even when we didn't have too much words to explain ourselves, there was at least a moment where one of these guys needs to tell to each other, hey, tomorrow when the big yellow thing comes out of the mountain, we go hunting the elephant. I don't know. It seems pretty basic, but there was some sort of meeting agreement that we need to fit our schedules to go hunting the elephant. I'm pretty sure that their schedules were a little bit freer than ours, but the concept of meetings is as old as humans. Nowadays, it looks like that. If you look from a stock photo perspective, still the same concept. Although I think a more appropriated and, let's say, accurate version of it would be more like this. I think we are still, sorry for my French, but a bit of a group of over-glorified monkeys trying to solve problems, complex problems that we ourselves created. And we all know the pain of being in meetings. So thinking about meetings, one of the top problems is scheduling, right? Is trying to find the right time and the right spot to meet, and it's hard. Sometimes I feel like that little girl, like you need to think so much about. You almost need to align the planets for that meeting to happen. You spend a lot of time trying to book a meeting of 45 minutes to an hour, and you probably spend 3 days doing that. That's the business that we are in. But there's the question of time is much bigger than just scheduling, of course. So scheduling is actually a problem since mankind invented some sort of time tracking mechanism, or even before, but maybe the concept of scheduling was not there. So when you look at meetings and trying to understand what makes a good meeting or what makes a bad meeting, because that's where we are at now, we got the conclusion that this is not mind-blowing. We know this by heart every time we go to a meeting. Like 44% of the people say that poorly organized meetings don't let me do my work. I need to do my work before going to work and after going to work because my work is just meetings. A lot of the meetings are just unnecessary because it could have been an email or it was not well structured and so forth. For the finance people in the call, it also actually has a huge impact on the revenue of a company or on the money that you spend. I mean, USA is leading that because Germany is a bit far behind, but this is a consequence of time wasted. And so that connects pretty well with the concept of time is money, time is scarce, because it actually is, especially in a business context, it actually is. The more time you spend in doing useless meetings or trying to find the right time, it is money that you spend. This is my pet peeve, which is the one in red, which is, my mouse is really jumpy, I apologize for that. Setting clear objectives, so repeating myself here, but when you don't have a goal, when you don't have an agenda, when you don't have a structure, the meeting just becomes a discussion and a hangout, and with not clearly any output. And my favorite pet peeve is like not having too many people in the room. I do believe in democracy, don't take me wrong, but I also don't believe that another voice giving random feedback or opinions would contribute for the effectiveness of that meeting. And then, it's about communication. It's not just about finding the right people in the right time. It's not just about, the structure. It's like also, how do you communicate? How do you run those meetings? So, this is the biggest irritations that our customers and our users actually pinpoint what is the worst part. Taking phone calls or making texts, people who don't listen to others, arriving late, people who talk for a long time and say nothing. My favorite one, also because it really annoys me, is people eating during meetings. I mean, you can imagine like doing a great pitch to your boss and there's Jeffrey, your colleague, like having an apple and dropping the juice on the table while you are trying to focus and convince your boss and hearing this guy chewing. It's pretty common and quite acceptable, but it's quite annoying. So what I want to say with this is not only the scheduling, it's not only the organization, but also how people behave. Unfortunately, Doodle, or for that matter, any other solution cannot help you with that. It's about always the human behavior and the human context. But at least we can guarantee that the right people are there. If they are eating an apple or not, that we cannot have much control of. So at Doodle, in a way, that's what we're trying to do, right? Is trying to own our time. I'm pretty sure that the marketing team didn't thought that from a historical perspective that I've put here, but of course this is a human problem. We don't own our time and we are obsessed with time. So we are on the business of trying to give you more power to own the time. And we do that in different ways. That I mentioned before, it's not just about the scheduling, it's also about how they can make the meeting seamless. So we are going towards the end of the talk. And I just want to ask you to raise a hand here, which is, the concept of time, it's created by humans. We are slaves of time. And often we don't live the time. We are either living in the past or the future. But the time is now, every moment now. Every time that little arrow in your screen that goes now, it's a new moment, new moment, new moment, new moment. Time is now. The future never comes, and the past is just the past. So one way to change our relationship with time, I will end up giving you not a recommendation, but a challenge to try at home. Every day, this is not from me, it's from a master that I follow that I will present afterwards. For a week or two, try to put your cell phone to wake you up at a very annoying hour in the middle of the night, like say 3:45 a.m. and put another one for the hour that you need to get up, maybe 7, maybe 9, depends. And every time that that phone rings, normally the first question that you have in your mind, like, what time is now? Do this exercise. The moment you think this, is just like, it's now, and where I am, I'm here. Every day that you do this, over a period of 2 weeks, your brain starts to behave differently in relationship of time, because you start to focus more on the moment. And ideally, you will get to the same conclusion that Ram Dass, a very spiritual guide from the 60s, mentioned many times. It's only the clock that is doing its thing and counting the time. You are always here, right now, sitting here. Thank you. So that was from my side. And I will try to stop present so I can see all of you.
Definitely a thought-provoking. So I'm planning to set an alarm at 3:52 a.m. but I think my wife is going to kill me because we have a small baby. So it's going to be wild if I do that. Thanks very much.
That's your alarm. You have a small baby.
Yeah. Actually, she sleeps quite well, so we are okay with that. So if I set the alarm, I know I will have a problem.
Yeah, fair enough.
The Innovation Cafe is over because I will be gone, definitely. Well, I'm curious, Ricardo. Is this part of a research you are doing at the moment to solve a problem?
Well, the data part, yes. The whole historical about the calendars and so on. No, that's a bit my obsession, trying to understand where the problem really is. And it seems to be in the beginning of the time. So the data that we have, yes, this is part of the constant research that we do at Doodle. But the previous history review and point of view, that's a bit my personal obsession. If anyone has questions, I'd be happy to have a chat.
I have a quick question, Ricardo. I thought it was quite interesting that you approached it more from like a human perspective, as if like all our relationship towards time is quite different. But I've lived in like Italy and now I'm in the UK, and there's such a big difference in how they manage time. Like in Italy, it's really accepted to arrive onto meetings around 10-15 minutes late, and it's absolutely okay because the first 10-15 minutes is like casual chit chat. And in the UK, it's like you have to apologize if you're 2 minutes late. I don't know, in your research, have you kind of also seen the cultural perspective towards time? And is it like universally accepted, or I don't know, I'm kind of curious.
Definitely not, but I think what I learned that was not a research, but maybe where I come from in my travels. And every time I travel, I notice that each culture has a different way to deal with time. I come from Portugal. We are a southern country. We are naturally maybe a little bit more relaxed and less, disciplined with our time compared to Scandinavia, for example, I guess. I mean, this is over-exaggerating everything and over-generalizing. But in general, there is that, right? I moved to Germany. I became much more punctual by living in Germany.
Yeah.
I needed to adapt. And nowadays, I'm the one that really gets pissed. Like 2 minutes late for me is not tolerable. 15 minutes already, huge disrespect. In Portugal or in other cultures would be kind of, it's just a guideline, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's
Exactly.
also, it's definitely cultural, but I think the most interesting philosophical question there is it the people or the environment? I mean, I had this
Yeah.
experience in Vietnam, for example, where everything somehow works, and you get all your, you get like everything works, but everybody's relaxed with time. And my question is it relaxed with time because it's cultural, or is it relaxed with time because of the whole environment makes it like that? If you live in a country or in a culture where going from A to B, that is probably like 5 kilometers, take you 2 hours and a half. The speed of movement of people, the speed of things happening, it's different. So you can do two things: either you completely freak out every time and you live in a panic mode, or you just chill and you believe that the whole swarm effect will work. It actually does. So I think it's very much cultural and in the context. I think what is interesting to learn or to observe is when you are working in a multi, in such a diverse company, or diverse companies where you have people from all different kinds of backgrounds, both from nationality, religions, and so on. I think that's where also a lot of the things can go wrong, right? Because people also assume that me as a Portuguese, I'm more relaxed with time. The guy's Portuguese, I can get there 15 minutes later. It's like, I hate that. I used to be like that, but I hate it. So nowadays I have Germans coming, like, sorry for the overgeneralization, but I have German friends that come late, and it's like, and I'm the one that is getting annoyed, not them. So, I think we learn and change with the time. But to be fair, I think common sense applies, but I think there's many different common senses across the world.
Yeah. No, thank you. That was a really insightful conversation.
Thanks for participating, really appreciate it.
I have a question. Do you believe in time management systems? Because there are many. I think I've read many books, starting with Getting Things Done from David Allen, and then 50 more different systems. And I'm always trying to improve mine.
Yeah, you are grilling me here because morally I should say yes, but I don't, from the nature of the work we do, and I think it helps. I'm not the right person the right human for that. I tried several, and I think it's also connected to the fact that I have ADD. I lose track of. I either my time gets super extended, and 5 minutes seems like 1 month, and sometimes 7 hours feels like a minute because I'm so focused, and my perception of time is completely random, or driven by my interest. I tried many systems, and I think it does work for a lot of people. I think each person needs to find its own way. For me, it just stresses me out. I think for me, the best thing I did, to be honest, was practice a lot with mindfulness and meditation. That's the best way for me to organize my time. I don't need more systems and more stress. It's like if I change the mindset that I have in relationship with time, and I really focus what I need to do or not that always work, for sure not, but I see it more from that perspective. I think it's more my relationship with time than the tools. The tools optimize it for sure, but if you don't change the perception of time, you might end up like me, just frustrated with all the tools.
As a designer, you are there's a method that probably you follow, right? Do you believe in structures? That's the thing. Structures or random events that just happen because
Random events, I leave it for the private life, for the magic to happen. I think if you wait for the magic to happen at work, you might get disappointed. That raises a bigger question that I'm a bit opinionated about it, probably not very unpopular opinion on that. When it comes to design and structures and frameworks and all of that, sure, they are important. They are fundamental for any kind of work, not only for design, but for business and tech. What I feel, and I get frustrated sometimes, not only from designers, but in general, like in the tech world, we get too dogmatic about the books. We get too dogmatic about the frameworks. And sometimes it's just like, it's just another religion. And we lack the pragmatism. And sometimes, reality sets in. Like these frameworks are the optimal scenario. These books are the optimal scenario. They are guidelines, but they shouldn't be the destination. And I think what I miss a lot of times is that this dogma and lack of pragmatism is detrimental to the industry. Does that reply to your question?
Yeah, because many of the frameworks are closely tied with time management. The design sprint, 5 days, 4 days design sprint. There's always a time frame or time box depending on the methodology, but time is always there. And we usually don't talk about value. We talk about effort because of cost.
Yeah.
That's why many authors now defend that it's not about time management, it's about energy management. That's probably how meditation can help and play a role. Not work hard, but work smarter.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm curious about this topic of time management and energy management. So that's why I'm asking.
I think for me, I can give you the two sides of it because I came from an agency. So time is money, literally. You charge by the hour, right? So that's a different mindset. You also need to make compromise. I think that's what I learned also, what to be, follow the rules, but be pragmatic because, time is on a product company. I think I'm still figuring out how does that go because it has a different pace. It has different rhythms. It's more peaking, and then I don't have still a full picture of that. I mean, time counts for sure. You need to put features out. You have OKRs. You have all of that all the goals that are tied to some sort of a timeline, roadmaps and whatnot. But it's a different pace. So I think, in my experience, we spoke more about time in an agency or in a consulting background or context than in a product company. Yeah, that would be my reply.
Guys, feel free to unmute and ask very difficult questions to Ricardo.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, Kevin. Go ahead.
Go.
Yeah, so hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not sharing video because I just can't right now. And Ricardo, thank you so much. I'm going to borrow Smriti's feedback. I really appreciated the human perspective of time, which is, kind of refreshing at these times. I have a very simple question, which is, I kind of can relate to all the feedback that you shared when someone says, this is taking too much time. Imagine that you're in a meeting, too much time, you pick up your phone and so on and so forth. But my question is, how do you put those ideas into place inside an organization, Because I would say that, all of us here, we're going to have, for me, people not being on time. And yes, Ricardo, eu sou português, I am Portuguese, so I do understand your point. But for me, it's not okay to be off time. So if someone arrives late, whether it's 2 minutes or 20, I like to be on time. But it's not the biggest issue for me, The biggest issue for me is spending 45 minutes on a meeting that could take 10. That's an issue for me. So my main question, and sorry if I'm kind of thinking out loud as I'm posing that question, the thing is, what would be your strategy to implement like a procedure for meetings inside an organization, Because if you have a small team, like 10 guys, I would say it's easier. But if you have 180, it's a totally different thing. So what would be your suggestion to have a plan to implement like a strategy for meetings?
I think there's many different levels to that. I think first it starts with the culture. If you are in a company that everything needs to be a meeting, that's a tough nut to crack. I think that needs to come from leadership, needs to come from the high level to say, we value our time, so be sure and be wise how the amount of meetings that you have, and be sure there is a reason for it and there is a structure for it. So I think if the company is too big and you are on that kind of environment, I think it needs to come from above. If you are in a smaller company, but to reply to your question, if you have a team and that's your direct team, one of the things that we have a bit at Doodle is that we are a meeting company, for sure. That's the business that we are. But we try a lot to not have useless meetings. So one thing, there is a lot of checking in. If I randomly go to a calendar of somebody and I book a meeting, 4 times out of 5, I'm going to ask, what is that meeting about? Do we really need a meeting? Can you just send me a document, write it down, and so on? And I was like, yeah, maybe I can. Yeah, okay. So there is like this peer, I will not controlling, but there's like peer checking. Do we really need it? It's not that we are superstars that our time is so valuable, but it's just like, do we really need it? And then even if it's needed, there's always the question like of people that are invited to participate. Hey, where is the agenda? Do you have a structure? What's the goal of that meeting? So you build this culture as you go, I guess. So you can start by creating that in your own team, and maybe probably can lead by example, because that also will probably, if possible, be measuring KPIs or some sort of tracking that how much time are you saving for not having those meetings. I mean, it's a bit abstract, but yes.
Yeah, thank you, Ricardo. I would say that you said something that I totally agree. That will be my course of action also, which would be lead by example. Start small and then drive from that. So that would be my course of action also. Yeah, thank you so much. Gonna unmute now.
Thank you for participating.
No, I was just kind of wondering if, thinking about the cultural thing, is it generated culturally or whatever, that I wonder if the countries which are keenest on punctuality are those which industrialized and became bureaucratic first. So if you think of Germany or Britain, for example, quite early to industrialize, and what you're then doing is creating a situation where you have multiple dependencies between people, often very inflexible ones on the production line. And that then establishes a cultural norm. So what Smriti said about Italy just made me think. I remember when I moved to Italy, it was like, when do the shops open? What is that shop's opening time? And eventually you realize it makes perfect sense. It's whenever the manager wants to open. And once you accept that, it's much less stressful and you get on with it. But in that case, you've got no real dependencies, right? It doesn't matter when I go to the shop. And if I walk down the road and find it's closed and walk back again, what have I lost? 10 minutes. Whereas if you're going to a meeting, it's only 15 minutes. You've got 8 people who all need to ask you information or get information from you. You have to be there for those 15 minutes because otherwise 8 people have just been let down and they'll let you down if they're not there. But it establishes a norm which you take to the rest of your life. You think, why isn't the shop open? Right? But there's no reason in different cultural contexts why actually you couldn't be super punctual in one case and actually not care whether the shop's open in another. But we don't seem able to move from one model to another, if that makes sense.
That's true. That's actually quite a good point. I mean, industrialization might have played a bigger role than we thought, and like this point of in Germany or the UK. It can totally be like if you think about it. Some colleague of mine was sharing with me. I didn't read it so much. How, for example, these blocking systems and these and the whole industrialization also became a way to control the people of the country and to shape their minds and also to shape their behaviors. I mean, we are entering here borderline maybe conspiracy theory or it can be a little bit dodgy to talk on these topics in this context, but there is true. Like if you are the master of time and the country runs on that system, you're gonna control and have an influence on the behavior of the country.
In this COVID-19 changing anything? Because now meetings are more, let's say, this is my perspective. I think meetings are now more productive. We are running more workshops instead of meetings. I'm talking about my case in particular. We are using Miro
Mm-hmm.
And when we use a whiteboard, sometimes we structure, okay? And we also use timers. So I feel that by working from home, we are improving the way we collaborate. And I'm not telling you just time management. I think we are improving collaboration because there was a need to rethink and reinvent how we can work together from different locations without knowing when we are going to get physically together. Is this your perspective as well, that COVID is changing how we collaborate and manage time? And
Yeah, I think so. Maybe for the wrong reasons, but it is. I think, for example, I think this whole COVID situation and pushing people working from home in a crisis, not working remote, um, just confronted us with, on a personal level, what our basic needs, and on the work level, what are the basic needs. I mean, I went nuts on my first 2 weeks working from home. Doodle is a very friendly remote company. We have different locations, teams share locations. It's fine. For us, it was not a big deal. But maybe in being in a position of lead or management, that you need to have like more syncs and more alignment that otherwise would be offline and face to face. I mean, my first 2 weeks was just hangout calls and video calls, and I get to the point, like many other people said, I can't handle this. This is more tiring than ever. But what I think the switch that it made is that it's very easy to be at the office and just go, hey, let's jump into a meeting. Person is there, and you go, right? When you are at home, you consider twice, do I really want another Zoom meeting? Or can we work out this differently? So I think that's one of the shifts that I observed, at least myself and some other people.
there's a question here from Mariana. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and ask that question to Ricardo. Okay, so what do you think about daily stand-ups when you have big tasks, 1, 2 weeks or more? Is that useful?
I don't know. Depends on the product. Depends on the project. Depends what's your role. I mean, for me, daily stand-ups where I'm standing, where I don't belong to any product team in specific, they don't bring me much as from the point of view that I need to have. I do have stand-ups with the design team on a weekly basis and so on, for sure. But yeah, my experience, yes, it's worth it. In projects, especially fast-paced projects, you want the biggest level of transparency and communication, and you want to get all the problems right from the beginning of the day to see how's it going. I mean, I think then is the more about the discipline. It's like, for me, a stand-up that goes over 15 minutes, that's not a stand-up anymore. If you have a stand-up of half an hour to 1 hour, that's not a stand-up anymore. So yes, daily morning stand-ups that are just, I did this, I did that, I'm blocked with this, I need to talk with you. Great, let's talk after. It's useful. If you jump into the topic and you dive into and so on, then it's just a waste of time, in my perspective.
Right. Anyone wants to add to this?
I'm not a fan of daily stand-ups, but I'd probably because of the teams I had worked on, or that they just end up kind of, you all stand up for 15 minutes and you spend the first 10 talking about what you did last night, and then yeah, sure, I'm going to work now. But yeah, but yeah, again, I think it depends on the team and the culture of the place. There's something you said, Hugo, about time boxing and kind of all the exercises, that clock, and I think it just got me thinking. I think it's just that it's about what you were saying about energy management. Like, you see the time going, it keeps the energy level until the clock goes ding. I mean, it could be A, B, C, D instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, and say that exercise would be F and could be randomly 12 minutes or 18, but you see the clock going, and it keeps the energy up. I think it brings a better quality of time, like you're more focused on what you're doing because you know that it's over after. So it forces you a bit to be focused, I think. and then when it's over, you're moving on to the next one. And so I think it's about bringing focus in the time, in a way.
But that might work for you. It might not work for another person. That's the problem when we are responsible for a team, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then in a group, I think it does at least carry discussion forward instead of being stuck in a moment for 30 minutes where you don't achieve anything.
But to Ricardo's point, or Kevin, I don't remember, talking about the Industrial Revolution, we are still optimized for the production line. The fact that we still work from 9 to 5 or something equivalent is something that comes from there, probably. That, oh, it's 9 a.m. It's 5. I need to go home. We follow this. Can we work better in a different way? Is it possible to collaborate in a different way? Meaning, if I can do my job in 2 days, why do I need to work 5? But if you want to work 7, that's up to you. Can we think of a world where this is possible? Is COVID going to change, radically speaking, how organizations collaborate, how teams collaborate? That changes everything from a time management point of view. It's going to be fun to understand. I have a few colleagues that now are like, don't run a meeting, run a workshop, because they are so addicted to workshops now because they really love the structure, and that changes everything. Even some of us are more like introverts. When we run a workshop and when we invite someone to speak, okay, it's much more efficient and productive, because usually there's always 1 or 2 guys in a meeting of 10. Those 2 are the ones speaking. Usually it's the host and then the highest paid person in the room or the hypo. And all others are on, I don't know, emails, maybe Facebook, I don't know, but they are passive, they are disconnected, and that is not productive. It's probably the worst thing that can happen, not getting 2 minutes late to the meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Hugo, I just would like to say that, this shift from those meetings to workshops, I have to say, I really enjoy it, because it's more like you're getting work done, or you're being more pragmatic at some point, you're collaborating. So the idea of just scheduling 3 meetings to discuss A, B, and C, if you previously assess what you really want to do, and just prepare the workshop that you're participating in, it kind of, I get the feeling that it gets things going forward. So I would like not to lose this workshop mindset in the future post COVID. So I have to say, I really enjoyed your point, which I totally agree.
There's still a challenge, because when people imagine when we run a workshop and there's a very important person in the room, a client or the CEO from our client, people are like, okay, but if he starts speaking and he doesn't stop, what am I going to do? Hey, Mr. CEO, please stop, because there's a structure here. So that's kind of an art as a facilitator, because these guys are not used to that. So it's important to know how to run a workshop from my perspective. Introduce the facilitator, explain there's a structure, and the structure will bring improvements and better outcomes. But it's a bit of an art, and empathy is really important, because it's a big change. And the curious thing, just to finish, when people say let's do a brainstorm, they don't do a brainstorm, they just talk, because a brainstorm, there's a structure to run a brainstorming in the proper way. But when we bring that structure, and we don't prepare people to have a structure, they can be really upset with you. It's kind of tricky. We are still shifting or pivoting to a more workshop-led way of collaboration, rather than a meeting where we spend hours and the outcome is, why don't you send an email next time? Sorry, I think I've interrupted someone.
No, I was about to say, kind of along those lines, in a workshop, people are more engaged or more readily kind of arriving with an open mind of what's going to happen, where in a meeting, half the people, or maybe I'd say probably 90% of the people, won't actually read the material before the meeting. So you spend the first half of the meeting going over what people have said, like even if like two people hasn't read it, oh, let's go over the whole thing. We'll re-explain it to you. So the more that happens, then the more that the next meeting, well, sure, I won't bother reading it because we're going to talk about it anyway. So where I found meetings when people are prepared, you run them like a workshop, like you just run through them. Okay, we've all seen what's supposed to happen. Then the three options were A, B, or C. What are you thinking? Or like, but yeah, it's about preparing. I posted a link in the chat on the 22-minute meeting. It's an old colleague of mine in Microsoft who did that talk, and fellow Canadian as well, but I won't hold that against her. But she was very good, and I think it kind of goes back to that, like why organize an hour meeting if you only need 22 minutes to make a decision. It's an old one, but it's a funny one and well worth the watch.
And
It's about 4 minutes 50 even to watch, so it's not even 22 minutes.
There are two sides of your dialogue strength, but like there is one side that like why people like workshops is because you don't prepare for a meeting like you prepare for a workshop.
Yeah.
So that's exactly your point, right? So I think I think it's more bringing the mindset of a workshop to prepare a meeting, because a meeting still has a place to happen, right? And a workshop is a workshop.
Yeah.
And on another hand, this is my personal learning as well, is that I'm not the biggest fan, of over documenting. Never was. So that means that the whole working remote and working apart relies a lot on documentation. Things that I would do normally in a meeting and face to face. I'm the kind of person, I don't like to text. I prefer to call because I'm going to lose half of the time by calling instead of texting. And I learned the hard way, and I'm still kind of adapting to it, to be honest, which is a lot of over documentation, but that actually avoids a lot of meetings. I mean, if it's just a meeting to get information, yeah, sure, here's the link, just read that. It's like, okay, but now I need to create my document for somebody to read. Okay, great. So there is also that part of that the COVID in this sense also pushed.
But I mean, even if it's not documentation, but at least have an outcome that you want out of a meeting. Even a lot of meeting I go to, they don't even know what they want to achieve in the meeting. So it's
yeah,
you arrive there and it's like, okay, let's talk about this, but what do you actually want out? And when you start probing on that ahead of a meeting, people kind of start thinking, okay, what's actually this decision that needs to be made, or what are we trying to do, to design, or to decide, or to refinance, or like, if once you have a goal, it focuses the conversation. And then if you just sit and go through a bunch of slides or a bunch of documents that you've sent in advance that nobody read, and then you say, okay, like, well, where do we go from now?
Yeah.
I'll go for coffee.
But I think it's a bit of a mindset, because of course, we have been always experienced that in any job that we might have had. But what I feel is that when somebody realizes that to ask the moment, this is the moment that somebody should ask, what are we doing here and what do we want out of that? Is either the people who are much senior or much more comfortable or confident that normally kind of raise the topic, hey, but why? What are we doing here? But what I notice often is that these people, including myself sometimes, is that I'm not the right one to say that, because I'm not even realizing it. And then, you might have a junior next to you that is just seeing the whole thing from afar, and is like, where is this meeting going? And it's like, where is the goal? And it's like, but they don't step up, because, it's not up to me to say, where is this even? This is people who are, and I think this is something that every person should have the right to, and the confidence to do so. And I think that's one of the roles that, if you are an experienced facilitator, you know how to read the room, you know that this is going nowhere. It might not be in your hierarchical position the right to say, hey, to question the CEO or whoever, is this meeting going anywhere? But if you are an experienced facilitator, you just can just keep the hunch. Hey, I think we might need to focus this, or I'm curious about where this is going. But everyone has the right to. But many little people do, in general speaking. But I think they all see the problem.
Thanks, Ricardo. And I guess we are running out of time. So time is literally everything, okay? But it was a good use of time, I think. Thank you all. It's always a pleasure to host this cafe. And tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., our guest is from Singapore. That's why it's at 9 a.m. It's from Trend Watching, one of the most famous companies doing trend in scouting and whatever, trying to come up with what's going to happen in the future. Again, it's about time. So feel free to participate. I just pasted the link here on the comments window. Okay, and please share the link of our YouTube channel. We need more audience. That's how you guys can help. And feel free again to become a speaker or to invite your friends, because we need to learn, and to learn we need people, and word of mouth is the most powerful marketing tool, I think. Okay. Thank you all. Ricardo, muito obrigado. See you all.
So much. It was really a pleasure. Really nice to hang out with you guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
guys. See you
Bye.
next time.